So welcome back to my channel. This is our part 2 on tips on propagation and things that you need to notice and take note of. So last week we talked about water propagation, and this week I'd like to talk about soil propagation. So welcome back. I'm Alice and I'm the Redsoil gardener. So if you do enjoy our episodes, please do give us a thumbs up. It means a lot to us. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends and your family, and also get them to subscribe. And don't forget to press that notification bell. Now, last week we talked about water propagation, and this week I would like to get into soil propagation. What we said last week is that the success you have with water propagation is usually about 99%. It always works. Now, the thing about soil propagation, it gets a bit dicey sometimes. I've been in situations where I've propagated maybe 5 of the same plant and only 1 works out. So my advice to you is, as you're doing your soil propagation, make sure you do make a lot, because the success rate compared to water is not that high. But just so that you don't waste your time, do make a lot of propagations, like whatever you want to propagate. Make 10 of them and you will get a success of maybe 5 or 6. But at least you have the assurance. Now, the thing about propagation of soil is exactly the same principle as water, as we talked, because as I always say in my episode, it's all about the node. So what I've done is I've taken this plant, which will propagate in soil, and again I'm going to show you where the node is. Here we have the nodes where all the leaves will come out, or the rooting will take place once it's submerged in soil. Now, when I want to propagate this, as we said before, is that I would remove these 2 stems, and I'm going to snip them off. So I'm going to remove that one and that one, and what I'm left with is 2 leaves, which will eventually supply all the nutrients for that stem to get it to propagate and get rooting. Now, the other thing, what I did emphasize, is that it's always good to have 2 nodes. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this lower one. Just cut maybe about 1 inch from the last node. Now, why I'm doing that is basically this node will be submerged in soil. Now, what happens is that why this gets submerged, and in fact give it quite a lot of, at least 1 inch, is that this is where the water will shoot up, and that's where the oxygen will go, and the nutrients in the soil will go up and help feed this baby plant. Because between these nodes, as we said before, is the internode, and again it's like a blood vessel. It just rushes all the nutrients to this plant to ensure that you get a good rooting. So this is how we're going to plant. Now, the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant it in a pot. So what I've done is I have prepared, this is a really good mixture here. It's full of coconut, it has everything, compost. It's a very light mixture, and I like that for rooting, because you should be able to, once you've put the plant in and it starts forming its root, make it an easy passage for that plant to move the roots around. However, if you do plant your plant in a clay soil, which is thick and compact, it'll be very difficult for those roots to actually move. And so you may get a root bound, which we don't want when we're cultivating our babies. So what I'm going to do is, let's take this one. So I've got the same mixture and I've put it in a plastic container, and always, as I turn it around, have the holes, because another thing is that as it's rooting, you don't want it to start getting root rot and all that sort of thing. Here we just want our baby to be successful. So what I'm going to do is actually moisten that, and I've got my little water here. I'm just going to make sure that my baby has water. Now, basically, here's my plant, and I'm going to make sure that my node is submerged in the soil. So I'm going to press it in, but I'm not going to be aggressive. So here we go. The node goes under the soil because that's where the rooting is going to take place. Good. Just going to give it a bit more water so that it's happy. So this one we've already propagated, is in the process of propagation. Now with the same plant, I actually have this one. Let me take a bowl. Let's hope it's worked. So I'm going to just tip it over here. So using the same technique, always remember the node, which I will show you, is where you get the rooting from. So here, as we've seen with this plant, is that basically here's my rooting with the soil. And look at that rooting. It's far stronger than the rooting that you do get with water. And this is through soil propagation. Now, what I would do with this plant is that now that it actually grows into a bush, is from a small propagating container, I will move it into a bigger container and slowly, gradually move it along, and then it'll be ready to go in the garden. I'm just going to place it there because these are also, I use the stem for propagating. And again, as we said, the node, the bottom node, although I have made it longer. So basically, this is what I'd like to explain to you. The node is very important. And once you do understand that, it just makes your gardening so simple. So now that what we're going to do, as I said, is that from this baby propagation container, I am going to put it in a bigger container, and gradually that's what I'm going to do. And once you do, I'm just going to make the hole. Once you do transplant it, is that ensure that first of all the soil is wet or moist, and you keep watering it, just keeping it moist for the next 2-3 weeks, because you don't want your baby to go into transplant shock, because moving from that environment into this environment can give it a shock. And then keep it moist for at least 2-3 weeks, so at least it sort of adjusts to this environment. And then slowly you can gradually, because a lot of these plants is that they do want to have periods of drying out. Once you do see that it is stable, then you can give it 1 or 2 days of very little water, less water, and then less water, and then eventually dry it out, and water maybe twice a week. But other than that, it's a happy baby. Here we go. So here we are with our soil propagation. I hope you've learned enough tips. At least we've actually sat down and concentrated on it. And again, is that it depends on you. If you feel you want to do a soil propagation, but it will take longer, but you will get soil roots which are much stronger, just go ahead with that. Water propagation, you do have a success route, but remember that the rooting, you have to be very careful with the roots because they are fragile, and you must make sure not to damage it. But both ways, it depends on you, what works for you. It's great. And happy gardening. And don't forget to like our channel, give us a thumbs up. It always makes us happy. And don't forget to share with your friends and your family. And don't forget to subscribe and recommend it to other people, and press that notification bell. Have a lovely, lovely day, and happy gardening.